got a couple of rhubarb plants outside and they are a bit close together, so I want to dig one up and maybe see if I can divide it to make extra plants for next year. Ideally, if you want to move rhubarb or divide it to make more plants, you're better off doing that December onwards, because at that point they'll be dormant. Well, I've got one plant that always does really well, but then next to it there's a smaller one and it gets a little bit crowded because they're all in the same area. So even though it is nearly end of October, I'm still going to dig it up, see if we can divide it to make 3 plants, and if not, what I'm going to do is pop it into a container, and then next year, once it's established, I can just take the whole thing out and put it where I want to put it, ready for new season. And these are his rhubarb plants. They're not very big, but as we go through season, this one gets massive. It fills all this area up, and then next to it we've got this little one which don't do as good, so I'm going to be taking that one up, and I might be able to split this into 2 or 3 separate plants. First we'll dig it up, see how that goes. So I'm just going to dig quite a way away from this plant. I don't want to damage roots too much. They have very strong root systems. As you can see, I think that might have got it. I'll just go a bit more on this side. There we go. And that's up. So we'll take that into the greenhouse and see what we can do with it. Pretty tough plants to dig up, and you can see why. You only see that little bit sticking out at the top, but that is the root system. Really big, thick roots. And as long as when you dig it up, you get some at root, it'll regrow. So don't be too worried if you decide you want to move yours. So what we can do with this is take it and put it into a really big container, or we could try splitting it. I think what we'll do first is we'll take it back outside and we'll blast some of this soil away, because we can't really see what we're doing. We'll have to do this from a distance as well, otherwise I'm going to be covered in mud. At least now we can see what we're doing. And that is a pretty intense root system. Well, we can now see it a little bit better. And we're looking to try and divide this plant. The roots do break quite easily, except when you're trying to dig it up. But that's one part of the plant, that's another, and that's another as well. So hopefully I can just separate it off somehow. I'm managing to keep some of this root system. Now that one's come away quite easily, and we've got a couple of parts of that rhubarb plant there and loads and loads of roots. So I don't want to tempt fate too much with this plant, because that is a nice compact rhubarb to replant as it is. And I think this is another part as well. So I think we can separate this bit. Hopefully we can. They don't always want to come apart. But look at the size of those roots. Ideally I just want to split this in half if I can, like that. There's loads of worms inside here. But that's another part of the plant there. We'll cut that off, that's no good anymore. But we've got these two top parts and we've got loads of roots. And then this is going to be his third piece. A new plant will grow from there come next spring. I'm just going to clean these up a little bit more. I think that will do. And now I'm handed as well. But it's all for a good cause. So basically I've got a couple there. Two that I could put outside in a different location. And then another one, the smallest of them, which I can put in a container. I've got quite a big container here. I'm just going to move these two out of the way because we're not using those. So we can put them in this container, but the roots are a bit big to accommodate it. So I'm going to cut these roots back. We've already got some compost in here. There's a few weeds in it, so we'll just take those out. But rhubarb's not too fussy. It's probably one of the hardiest plants you can grow. So what we're going to need to do is cut this root back so it just fits. So that long piece there is the bit that's getting in the way. So I'm just going to cut that off. And then I'm going to trim this one back just a little. And we've still got loads and loads of roots there. But now this fits. And we can centre it as well, which is even better. But one thing we need to watch out for, when you're repotting rhubarb, you make sure you don't bury this part of the plant, which is crown. Because if you bury that, that'll rot and it'll kill your plant. So we only want to be filling it enough to cover those roots up. So we can't go any deeper than that level. So I'll just start filling in around this plant. You can see we've got that top still exposed there. There's a bit of root exposed, but we can push that down as we're packing it in. Just making sure we don't bury this little part there. That's the important bit. And ideally when you're planting rhubarb, it's always better to put it so it's mounded, because then the water will run away from that crown and then there's no chance you're going to actually rot it and kill your plant. So filling onto the top like this a little bit with compost, and then just create a lower level around your plant. It's basically sticking up higher than everything else. And that's basically all you need to do with it. And that's one of his plants potted on. So they can be a little tricky to dig up initially. Those roots are really strong in that ground and they do spread quite a way. So you've got to chop a good distance away from the centre of that plant to try and get as much of that root as you can. That's in a container and that's all done. And then I've got these two pieces as well that will both turn into fresh rhubarb plants next year. So we'll decide where we're going to put these sometime this afternoon, and once again we'll bury them so we're not covering up this part of the plant. That needs to stay above soil at all times, and if we have to cut back a couple of roots to accommodate that, it's not a problem. So I'm going to have a look around the garden this afternoon and decide where I want to put these ready to regrow next spring. And from one very small rhubarb plant that was basically being smothered by a larger one beside it, we've ended up with 3 new ones, and one will be staying in a container, and I'll leave it in greenhouse and we'll see how that gets on. Just one other thing that I noticed in container garden on my way up, which actually amused me. If you remember, we was growing cherry tomatoes in a tiny hanging basket, and they long since died back, but some of them still had green tomatoes on them, but I just left those. But when I passed this morning, I saw this. How resilient are these plants? The plant itself has completely died back to nothing, and yet it's still got ripened cherry tomatoes on it. And they're all perfectly firm as well. So that is the final tomato harvest of 2023. If you want to see what else I'm doing this week, please hit that subscribe button, press that notifications bell, and I look forward to seeing you then. Take care.